Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into an absolutely critical administrative milestone for professionals across the Magnolia State, and that's renewing your Mississippi Notary Commission. If you're an active notary right now, you already know that your signature and your seal carry immense professional and legal weight, right? You're out there authenticating contracts, finalizing real estate transactions, and literally acting as a frontline deterrent to fraud. But what happens if you just kind of lose track of the calendar? Well, letting that 4-year commission lapse isn't just a minor inconvenience, it is a complete and total suspension of your legal authority. So today, we're going to walk through the exact step-by-step process to keep your commission active, compliant, and completely uninterrupted.
Now, this brings us to a very serious, kind of provocative question. What exactly happens if your notary commission does expire? You might be wondering if it's really that big of a deal. Well, yeah, it is. The real-world consequences of letting your commission lapse can be pretty devastating. We are talking about critical documents being completely voided, potential legal liabilities heading your way, and essentially having to start the entire application process completely from scratch. Okay, let's dive into this, because this is absolutely crucial. In Mississippi, there is no automatic renewal. None. And more importantly, there is absolutely zero grace period. So if your term expires on a Tuesday and you stamp a document on a Wednesday, performing that notarial act is entirely illegal. That document, it's legally void. If you ever find yourself with an expired commission, you are legally required to immediately stop all notarial acts. You basically have to apply as a brand new applicant. It's a harsh reality for sure, which is exactly why getting your renewal done on time is so vital.
To make sure that doesn't happen to you, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll cover 1. Eligibility and timeline. 2. Application steps. 3. Costs and documents. 4. Submission and processing. And finally, 5. Pitfalls and updates.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Eligibility and Timeline. This is all about verifying your qualifications and mapping out those critical dates.
So before you fill out a single form, let's just do a quick baseline check on the requirements, just to make sure nothing has changed for you. You still need to be at least 18 years old, a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, and be able to read and write English. You also need a clean criminal record, meaning no unpardoned felonies, and you can't have had a prior commission revoked or suspended. But here is a really important one to remember, the residency requirement. You must be a resident of Mississippi for at least 30 days prior to applying. And heads up on this, if you move out of the state at any point during your commission, Mississippi law actually considers that a deemed resignation. Boom, your commission is immediately terminated, and you have 30 days to notify the Secretary of State.
Okay, so when should you actually start the paperwork? And this brilliantly illustrates just how strict Mississippi notary law is with its timelines. You can begin your renewal process no earlier than 90 days before your current commission expires, but if you want to absolutely guarantee a continuous, uninterrupted commission, your deadline to apply is 60 days before expiration. Don't push it past that. And it doesn't stop there. Once the state approves your initial application, you hit another strict deadline. You have exactly 60 days to submit your executed surety bond and your official oath. If you miss that window, you have to start the whole thing over.
Moving right along to Section 2, Application Steps. Let's look at your step-by-step administrative roadmap.
The actual administrative steps are pretty straightforward if you take them one at a time. First up, you're going to complete Form NP001. That's the standard application. Just make sure you clearly mark it as a renewal. Second, and this is kind of a fun quirk, embedded right inside that application is your oath of office. Ironically enough, you actually have to go find another active notary public to notarize your signature on that oath. You literally cannot notarize it yourself. Third, you'll submit that application along with a $25 state fee. Fourth, the state takes a look, and when you're approved, they'll shoot you a pre-commission email. Once you get that golden email, you go out and buy your $5,000 surety bond. Fifth, and finally, you just mail that completed bond back to the Secretary of State within that strict 60-day window we talked about.
Let's move into Section 3, Costs and Documents. We're going to break down the mandatory fees and the required supplies you'll need. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing the actual financial reality of the renewal. Budgeting correctly up front is definitely going to save you from some stressful surprises later on. While the state application fee is just a really low, flat $25, your total out-of-pocket is going to be higher. You're legally required to get that $5,000 surety bond, which usually runs somewhere between $50 and $90. And of course, you're going to need a new official stamp and a journal, which will set you back another $35 to $100, depending on what you buy.
So when you add the whole shebang together, your total estimated out-of-pocket cost for the next 4 years will land somewhere between $110 and $215.
So let's talk a little more about those specific physical documents and supplies you're buying. First is that $5,000 surety bond. Now please remember this, a surety bond protects the public from your mistakes. It does not protect you. Next up is your official inked seal. Make sure this specifically shows your current county of residence. You also absolutely need a permanently bound journal. Since the revised Mississippi law on notarial acts went into effect back in July 2021, every single notarial act has to be recorded. And, get this, you must keep those entries for 10 full years. Lastly, you might really want to consider errors and omissions or E&O insurance. It's completely optional, but unlike the required bond, E&O insurance actually protects you from legal expenses if you happen to make an honest mistake.
Okay, on to Section 4, Submission and Processing. We need to make sure you're sending everything to the right place and that you know exactly what to expect.
So the crucial point is knowing exactly where to send your paperwork because there's a lot of confusion around this. The absolute correct practice is mailing your application, your $25 fee, and eventually your bond directly to the Secretary of State, Business Services Division right in Jackson. The incorrect practice, and this is a myth that just spreads like wildfire, is trying to file your renewal paperwork locally through your county circuit clerk. Just don't do it. Mississippi does not require and they don't process county-level recording for notary commissions. Everything has to go to the state level in Jackson.
And hey, here is some really good news. If your application is perfectly complete, meaning you filled the form out right, you included the fee, and your oath is properly notarized, the realistic processing time is usually less than 1 week. Yeah, really. The Secretary of State's office is highly efficient as long as you hand them a flawless application.
But you have to beware of the dormancy window. This is a super critical regulatory concept to understand in Mississippi. So once the state approves your initial application, you technically enter this dormancy window. Your commission is approved, sure, but you have absolutely zero legal authority to actually perform any notarial acts yet, not until you have purchased your $5,000 bond and successfully filed it with the Secretary of State. If you fail to submit that bond within your 60-day window, your application just dies. You'll have to start the whole process and pay the fee all over again.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Pitfalls and Updates. Let's make sure you avoid some common errors and stay informed on recent legislative changes.
We touched on this right at the beginning, but it is hands down the single most severe pitfall, assuming your commission has a grace period. It doesn't. If you notarize a document even 1 day after your expiration date, that document is entirely void and you are looking at some serious legal penalties. The solution? If you do happen to let it expire, just treat it as a total lapse. Stop all notarizations immediately and just apply strictly as a brand new applicant. It's not worth the risk.
Here is another incredibly common real-world mistake. Moving. Let's say you move your house to a new county in Mississippi, but you figure, hey, I'll just keep using my old notary stamp. Nope, you absolutely cannot do that. While your actual authority is statewide, your physical stamp is strictly tied to your county of residence. The solution here is to file Form NPO4, which is the change of address form, within 30 days of moving. You'll pay a small $20 fee, and then you have to go purchase a brand new stamp that reflects your new home county.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the tech side of things and recent legislative updates. Your jurisdiction is statewide, meaning you can notarize anywhere inside Mississippi, but you can never perform a notarization across state lines, no exceptions. Also, despite what you might see advertised online or used in other states, remote online notarization, or RON, where the signer is on a webcam and not physically in the room with you, is not legally authorized in Mississippi right now. However, in-person electronic notarization, or IPEN, is authorized. That's where the signer is physically standing right next to you, but you use an electronic tablet to sign instead of paper. But take note on this, doing IPEN requires a completely separate e-notary registration with the Secretary of State.
To really hammer home those jurisdictional boundaries we just talked about, the state guidelines clearly say this: a notary public has no legal authority to perform notarial acts outside the state line. Any notarization conducted in a neighboring state is void and illegal. You are a Mississippi notary, and your superpower literally stops right at the Mississippi border.
As we wrap things up today, please just keep this standard disclaimer in mind. This explainer is for informational purposes to help you understand the source material and the process. Laws and state regulations do change over time, so you should always consult a legal professional or the Mississippi Secretary of State directly for personalized advice or just to verify the latest guidelines. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Are you ready to go check your notary expiration date today?
Seriously, don't let your legal authority slip away just because of a simple administrative oversight. Go check your stamp, pull out your certificate, and mark your calendar for exactly 90 days before your expiration. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and stay focused out there.